Tapping in.
Are we live?
Yo. The kids official sliding on the instrumental. Nordic combos, twist your mental like forbidden jitsus. My click's initial.
Hey, man.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you, brother. Listen, it's a crazy time. I don't know how things are going that side, but over here in the UK, it seems as though they're about to reintroduce some COVID regulations. You know, we've been naked masking it over here for a better part of the last part of the year, and it seems like they're about to put in new constraints. And this is off the heels of a new variant that has been found, the Omicorn. No,
I think it's Omicron. You said like Omicorn is a different. We're gonna use that as a joke for corny people later. Like y'all got the Omicorn virus, y'all corny, but it's Omicron. I think is the COVID John.
What's
Oh, it's just me now. I've been waiting for this. What up, Live Nate? Oh, he coming back.
you know?
Welcome.
Difficulties, man. So tell me what the temperature in the US is like.
Man, it's mixed, right? It's like people are sick of having to wear masks. People are sick of all of the additional inconveniences that come with regulations due to COVID. So I think especially over the summer, we saw people like push the limits and the boundaries of what we could do as far as gathering, getting together, trying to live a normal life. I think as we move into like the fall and the winter season, we're in this position where it's people like we're a lot more susceptible to even regular things like the flu, right? So I think there's a weariness that a possible spike could come up this fall, this winter. And there's kind of a push to be careful, but especially leading out of this summer, people are kind of feeling like, man, I'm done with this. I want us to be back to normal for real. And I think the rise of a new variant just reminds us that, like, as inconvenient as it may be, as sick as all of us are of not being able to live our normal lives and do things normally, like these regulations are in place because we're not out of the woods yet. And I think that's what this shows.
Yeah. And it's very peculiar because the timing that we're in right now, mentally, as you say, we've all kind of gone to the place where it seems like people are just so fatigued with this virus, you know, like one cannot understate just not everybody had the same experience in what this virus did to them financially, emotionally, family wise. There's a whole lot of things that are encompassed by it. And I think a direct correlation of how cooped up and like the mental effect of being indoors had to people. We saw that when everybody went outside, people were wilding out. You know, we discussed that back on the Travis Scott Astroworld Festival when we're talking about this social mania where people are really just taking things to the nines in how they're engaging with themselves outside. So part of the story of this particular strain that Miles knows how to pronounce better than I do is that it was detected in my home country of South Africa, right? And off of that, you saw a increasing number of restrictions and an increasing number of South Africa being put onto the red list and things of that nature, with media painting or with media essentially the verbiage around it was that this is a South African strain in South Africa and has been punished for it. And it turns out there might have been a little bit more complexity around that, right? So you had a lot of South Africans that were just up in arms talking about, it's here for sure. We're not denying that. But how come y'all saying it's our disease? We didn't make this disease. We just so happen to find it because we have strong enough institutions to find it.
And yeah, from across the pond, China was like, yeah. You see?
And you never want that, dude. You never want that. You never want that.
But I think a little bit of what you're speaking to is like just this state we're in where we're so susceptible to hysteria via the news, right? We're in this place where we want the quickest, most digestible piece of information. We want to summarize maybe a very complex situation as simply as possible because we have so much to digest. We're digesting COVID. We're digesting climate crisis. We're digesting political crisis. We're digesting like legal cases that have ramifications for how we engage socially with racism, the future of our justice system. Like, we just want to make it bite-sized. So South Africa, new strain is bad. Lockdown.
Lockdown is equals lockdown for sure. That is the definite thought pattern that was taken, and that obviously has rubbed people the wrong way, right? It's rubbed people the wrong way because the narrative, I think, is a difficult thing, and a lot of times, Africans are aware of the power of a narrative, right? A lot of the luxuries that go with narratives of other, let's say, I don't even want to say developed countries, but countries that have stronger media influence. You're able to see a lot of redemption happen sooner. You're able to see a lot of media forgiveness and just the wording that allows for people to not associate those countries with those things. But when that's not necessarily the case, we have what happens here. So for one of the things that were pointed out, for instance, is that the growth rate of this variant was higher in Europe and in the UK, particularly in the UK, Spain, a lot of the countries that had immediately put South Africa on the red list. Now, countries putting South Africa on the red list is not particularly a bad thing. Let me not say it's not a bad thing, but it's not an odd reaction to an outbreak of this particular strain. More countries will be put on the red list, but it's that accompanied by the narrative, like you said, making it bite-sized. South Africa, new COVID strain, bad, lockdown, guilty.
Yeah, and it's extremely unfortunate, especially as we head into, like, I know this side in the US, like, I'm very wary of lockdowns, increased regulations due to flights, right? I have moves to make. I have a wedding to go to in January. My girl is flying in next month, like, for the holidays. So it puts a lot of people in very difficult predicaments, right? I was watching the news and I saw this gentleman that had rushed to the airport to try and get a flight out of South Africa to go back to the UK, and he was unable to get on it, and now he's stuck there, kind of in limbo, man. So, yeah, just wanna one time for all the people that are out there dealing with this in real time, that are stuck places where they don't want to be, that can't get to their home right now. That's trash. And I think, yeah, man, I think what you spoke to means that more so than blame, more so than, South Africa bad, which, like, as you mentioned, right, news cycles tend to pick up these catchy headlines, but then when there's a chance for a redemption, when we find out more details, right, they don't shout that as loudly. Right. And so when we find out more details about this, when we maybe find out that, maybe South Africa was the first to detect this, right? Maybe, but that's not where it originated. If that were to be the case, we wouldn't hear that probably as loudly as we're hearing this call to arms and alarm because of this virus. So rather than focusing on that, I would want to focus on, like, how are you? How's your family? Are they taking extra precautions? What's the feeling like having people that are on the ground there?
I mean, lockdown is looming, right? So I think everybody is mentally preparing themselves to go into some form of restricted living going into the holidays, which is kind of unfortunate. This is a big time for businesses. This is a big time for commerce. A lot of people make their money during this time, and already the company is fragile. We covered the fact that we have the highest unemployment rate in the world. So, those things definitely do affect family and extended, and it's unfortunate in that regard. Definitely, I know of some people that have already caught it. I know people that are going through it, and it jumps. Those people are young, have been vaccinated, but it doesn't matter. It kind of keeps catching them, which is just in answering your question directly. The family at the moment is good, and everyone is being cautious. But again, like it really is quite exhausting because we waited for these vaccines and we got the vaccines, and now this thing is developing quicker than the solutions that we were able to put into place, and now we're stuck in a place. It's like, do I actually really care about this virus anymore? I think everyone is at a place where it's just like, man, do I care about this thing enough to go indoors? And we're seeing people in Europe that are striking. Poland, there's protests that are happening in Poland over restrictions. There were protests in France, in Spain. The cases are rising. Governments have issued lockdown restrictions, but people just don't want to go back inside and are literally protesting that in the streets.
Yeah, it's difficult because it's, again, as we were talking about like off mic, right? It's one of those things that you really can't see, right? And that is only theoretical until it touches like you or your family. And for some people, they've had that touch and it's been very mild, right? They've been able to get over it, so they're shaking it off. So it seems disproportionate, the response that might be catering to a portion of the population that's more susceptible to having a more severe response and holding everybody to a certain set of restrictions because of that. So yeah, people are very frustrated. I'm glad to hear everybody on your side is good. Actually, my little brother, Evan, hit me up when he was making his trip back to Mizzou, saying, "Hey, yo, I'm reading about this. It's coming from South Africa. How's Zway and the fam?" So I'm also yeah, man, yo. So the Evan's empathy like kind of just reminded me that people are so this went like just having COVID continue to happen and have spikes, like people, it sends ripple effects. Like even if the severity isn't is debatable, and how much regulations can be put in place, need to be put in place to combat it is debatable. People get worried about their loved ones. People get worried about their travel plans, and it's still an ongoing thing that's severely affecting our lives, man. As much as we want to break out of it, as much as we want to be so done with it. And I think, I don't know, how do you feel? I feel like we need to kind of accept that and be like, we're not done with it. This is going to be like this. Think more long-term about this. Like we're going to be really dealing with this for 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road.
Oh man, don't say things like that, man. Don't say things like that. I mean, I have to have faith in modern medicine. I have to have faith in modern science and just hope that solutions will come out quicker. Because quite honestly, man, I'm also I'm also part of the people that are quite just exhausted with this type of living, masked up, curfew hours in South Africa. They banned alcohol, so they take your booze. Now
yeah.
we were drinking moonshine last year. You know what I mean?
I know.
I don't want to go back to that.
And I know that in certain places it gets so much deeper when we're talking about a lockdown than it does here in the US, but I'm like, especially things like mask wearing and vaccinations. Like I haven't gotten my booster shot yet. That's something that I you need to go and do because of how much I'm out in the community and the people that I interact with. But yeah, I'm sick of this stuff too. I don't want to be jabbed with the needle for the third time, have my arm sore for but I think it's for the sake of us all, and the fact that like this variant popping up, I think just makes me think of the fact that, all right, we do need to keep wearing masks, right? Because this is continuing to happen. As much as we don't want to, like, knowing that this is out there, knowing that it's more resistant to some of the vaccines and to our immune system because of how much it's mutated, like, we do need to be wearing masks. And it also makes me feel like, fam, we just got to kind of get on. We just got to have a longer term outlook on how long we're going to be making some adjustments,
I don't want to be ignorant, but even the usage, or at least the protection that masks give you, has been questioned, right? Like how much protection does it actually give you? And then also you look at the waste that these masks have caused, particularly in the ocean, right? These blue surgical masks, it's incredible, bro. Like hundreds of millions of these things are now dumped into the oceans, and we're dealing with that reality too. So it's and you take into account virtue masking, which is a term that you taught me, which is, I love that term, where we're just wearing masks when we're around other people to show like, hey, I'm virtue signaling that I am part of the people that believe in masks. And then we get into into confined spaces, restaurants, whatever the case is, we take it off. There's also the social habits we formed around this that we formed around this virus are also things that don't always speak towards science, and that's the frustrating thing. But you have to enforce what works. Things like keep everybody at home, or put on a mask when you're in transition, things like that, that might not necessarily fully speak towards what science is saying is effective or whatever the case is. But because socially we've accepted it, this is it. I'd like to hope that modern medicine is going to beat this virus, and that in 3 years, 4 years, even I think 3 years, we'll be able to take something and keep it pushing. It's just a new part of the flu.
But that's what I'm saying. Like 3 years is a different perspective than we were thinking like 1 year and being done with this, being done by next summer, being ready to be back out. That's exactly the mindset I'm saying. And I think I tend to lean too heavily on like mask wearing as the easy go-to practice that is, like you said, representative of a commitment to trying to protect other people from, spreading the virus, right? But I think what I'm trying to speak to more is the mindset change of like, this is almost over, so I'm cool with kind of not really caring how I move around. I think it's everything. It's washing your hands. Like, fam, I remember at the beginning of the pandemic finding out that CPS, as a part of their response to COVID, was like, we're going to make sure there's soap in every bathroom. Y'all, we should have been on that. We should have been on washing our hands. We should have been on washing our hands before we eat. We should be using hand sanitizer, like just thinking of a collective way to keep each other healthy and safe is a mental transition that I think we need to make in response to this virus that some of us are resisting in terms of like just wanting to get back to normal. And I'm my bad if I'm overemphasizing mask wearing as a part of that, but I'm trying to say like we got to start thinking about caring for each other differently for a minute, right? And like our space and our surroundings, like there's got to be a mental shift. And I want to see that in terms of keeping people safe, right? And people are free to protest what they want to protest and fight legislation, because Lord knows I want to see my family this holiday. I don't want too many restrictions, but we gotta look out.
Off of speaking of mental switches, right, which is almost a perfect segue into the next current news topic that we're going to get into. A lot of people during COVID experienced a lot of people went through mental health issues, right? We saw this was the boom of the mental health industry, but fueled by the boom of the realization of how much actual mental wellness was lacking in people's everyday habits and lives and whatever the case is, right? And I think that speaks almost closely related to the increase in drug prescriptions and the increase in all of these anti-anxiety medicines and things of that nature that come up at that same time.